When I was a kid, one of my cousins was applying for a mortgage, and they said that it was only going to cost $600 a month to buy this house. My grandpa told him, you can nail together a lot of boards for $600 a month, and I've never forgot that. Although this isn't for everybody, and not everybody would want to live in a place this small, you certainly could. Not only that, but by building a cabin, even a cabin this small, you learn the ABCs of construction. So later on, if you did want a big house and you didn't want to pay big money for it, you could build it yourself. It's just the same principle on a larger scale. So far on this build, I've had nothing but good weather. And it's been a warm fall. But this morning's quite a bit of rain. Had a neighbor stop by. Long as the water comes out of the sky nice and clear, and not too often, I think we're going to be okay. When it starts coming out of the sky snow white, well, we might have a problem. Better get at it. There's something magical about building a deck. It's just a floor to sit on, and it's outside. Its sole purpose to exist is just to be a place to be enjoyed. That's a wonderful thing. Sure is nice to be at this point. The whole floor is done. The deck is done. I can start standing walls. And it'll start to look like a place. I'm excited. What a beautiful day for getting something done. Everything's trucking right along, and I can feel the momentum of this project. And then this happens. You ever feel like you bit off more than you can chew? This is what it looks like.
Oh my goodness.
So plan B is to cut out the windows in the doorway, and hopefully that 50 pounds of plywood I lose is going to make the difference.
Oh, nice. Nice. Whew.
I don't know what that wall weighed, but it was too much for me to pick up. It was about 32 square feet of plywood between the window and the doorway, and that made the difference. Honestly, it was a stupid idea to try standing a wall like that in the middle of nowhere, in a remote setting, by yourself. I shouldn't have done it. But the good news is, that was the hard part. That was the peak of the mountain, and I'm on the other side of it now. Standing that wall is the single hardest thing that needed to be done on this cabin. And I would have loved to have had 3 people to help me put it up effortlessly. I did manage to get it up. This back wall is nothing compared to the front because it's only a 6-foot wall. Now on a shed style roof like this, I like to just put my rafter up in place, get it where I want it, and then mark it along the top of the plate and on the outside of the wall. Put a clamp on it if it wants to move around on you. As long as the front wall is plumb and the back wall is plumb and they're braced, you can put that rafter up, mark it, cut it, set it in place, and then I'm going to start building the rafters that go to the porch. Setting them up one at a time. Also, I'm going to put the bird blocking between the rafters. That's going to make the roof sturdier, and of course it keeps birds and squirrels out of your insulation. Very important part of the job. Everything is going along just as smooth as I could have hoped for. I can just imagine how it's going to be to hang out here in the wintertime and read a good book. And speaking of hanging out, where am I living while I build this cabin? Well, I'm living in a tent at our campsite on the property. At night, the wind dies down, and this part of the country gets just about silent. You can lay there in your sleeping bag and just listen. A lot of times you don't hear anything for hours. Just silence. This whole project has been an absolute joy, and I can't think of a single thing I would change about the experience. Until right now. I never heard a thing. Never heard a flake fall, never heard the wind blow, nothing at all. Just wake up and just a bunch of wet, heavy snow everywhere. Well, nothing will get you motivated more than the idea of absolute failure. And I need to get this project done. I have procrastinated as long as anybody should, and now I'm being reminded.
This is obviously a warning shot. 4 inches of wet, heavy snow. I don't have a roof on. Phew. Time to get it done. Get it done or shovel every morning. It's an easy one.
So I think the plan for today is I'm going to try to get the porch done as best that I can. I don't want to put a roof on the main part of the cabin just yet, if I can avoid it, because I want that light for filming and for doing the insulation, for doing the tongue and groove work that I want to do. It's all going to look so much better if I have natural light from up above. As long as the weather holds out, I'm not going to put a roof on this place, but I am going to keep an eye on the radio, or an ear rather, and make sure I know what the weather's going to do to the best of my ability. Lucky for me, the day was really warm, and by the afternoon, all that snow was gone. Thank goodness. But I did learn my lesson, so it's time to start putting some metal on at least part of the roof. Now, you might have noticed that the building sequence for this cabin has been very, very odd. I put the front wall up, then the back wall, then the roof, without the end walls being on. Then I piece in the end walls, and I sheet them. But I don't sheet them all. I've left a hole in one end wall so I can pass long flooring boards and long tongue and groove in. I'll finish that wall at some point. See the hole behind me? So I guess I'm just kind of doing what seems right at the time. I also don't want to put the metal on the roof until I'm done with as much as I can on the inside, just for the lighting of it. Well, after being terrified by a big dump of snow too early, I feel like I'm back on track. Getting these walls insulated and getting this tongue and groove up is going to go a long way, at least for my morale, in making me feel like I'm making progress. Gotta love the tongue and groove. Nothing looks better in a cabin than just beautiful wood. Well, I'm to that point where I need to put my roof panels on. I've done everything that I can do without having a roof on this place. Now, it's time to put these 6 panels on the back of the roof, which takes no time at all. I do love doing metal roofing. And now that the roof is done, I can insulate the ceiling, which is my favorite job of all, said nobody ever. But hey, I guess it's done now. The following morning was cool and frosty, which just makes me want to work on the chimney and have a little campfire to boot. Not only do I have all kinds of brush I need to burn up, I also have scrap wood and scrap material that's got to get burned up. And it's just nice to have a little campfire while you work. Now, I'm not really ready for the chimney, but the chimney is kind of an assembly. It needs to be put together so when you're ready to install it, it's ready to be installed. So I'm hooking all the pipe together and the elbows. It's a fantastic morning for getting some of these jobs out of the way that don't really fit into the rest of the building project. They're things that need to get done, but they're kind of their own little separate jobs. Now that all the tongue and groove is done, I'm pretty much through with lumber that needs to stay dry, except for the floor. I still have to put the floor in. Now the floor is going to be 1 by 12 pine boards. We built a cabin last year, my wife Brooke and I, and she did the floor in 1 by 12 pine boards. And it looked fantastic. And it's pretty simple and straightforward and quick. I like both of those things. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do this floor in just a knotty pine. But the floor can wait until tomorrow. It's almost dark and it's supposed to be good weather. Time for burning some brush, burning up some scrap, and cleaning up this pigsty of a building site. I like to keep my building site as clean as possible, but sometimes work just gets ahead of you. It's nice to take a minute and just have a big fire. Well, overnight our friend Snow came back. And I don't need to be told twice, I get the picture. Time to wrap this thing up, be done. Now the one thing I really regret about this whole building process is that the porch has kind of become a catch-all. It's covered in nails and screws and bits and material and tools and whatnot, and I haven't had any time at all to enjoy it. One of the best things about being done with this project is being able to clean the porch off, and I look forward to that like you wouldn't believe. For people who have never built anything before, my best piece of advice to you is everything in building is sequence. Today I want to put the wood flooring in, and I'd like to get it stained, but I can't get it stained until the cabin is heated, and I can't heat the cabin until the chimney's in. And once the chimney's in, then I can put the wood stove in. So the sequence of events is kind of laid out for me. I've got to put the chimney in on the outside anyway, so I can put the wood flooring down and then put the stove inside and the inside chimney, heat the cabin, then hopefully I'll get the floor stained. But to be totally honest, this time of year, the name of the game is get as much done as you can. Because tomorrow, there's a possibility you could get a foot of snow. And I might have a hard time even getting back out to a paved, plowed road. So, I'm just going to keep plugging away at this and try to get the important things taken care of before there's no way to get in and out of here but a snowmobile. One of the biggest innovations in the last 50 years for people who want to live off-grid are these little power stations. Power stations and LED lights. Wow.
Now that is nice. This place has been pretty gloomy today with all the rain and the wet snow and the junk. This makes it quite a lot better.
The weather forecast on the radio is, well, let's just say threatening. It's going to be snowy, and it's going to be snowy soon. I wouldn't say I'm in a mad dash right now, but I'm thinking about it. Just like any serious dyed-in-the-wool procrastinator, I'm putting the door in last. And then I'm going to put the steps to the deck, which I should have put in on day one because I've been leaping up on this deck and jumping off of it for weeks. Even though the snow is falling on and off right now, I can see the end in sight. I get these steps in and I'll have all of the major things done that I hope to get done before the end of the season.
Nice. Man, that sure feels good.
Nothing fancy. Just a simple little cabin in the woods, in a remote spot, quiet, peaceful.
Well, by the look of the weather, I think we pulled that off just in the nick of time. For everybody that's followed along on this video, from start to finish, I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name's Dave Whipple, and you're watching Bush Radical. And be radical, eh?
HC Hype, HC Hype. I'm so happy because today is payday. I paid, Jesus Christ, $500 to the Arena Grandmaster Mafia so I could get the Arena Grandmaster trinket.
This game is so stupid. It's such a dumb game.
was so worth it. Oh wow, my gold has arrived already. That was
gold.
so quick. What a fantastic service. I'm leaving a good review.
You know, I bet they probably record some of these on the official servers. Nothing ever happens.
Ooh, an epic axe. It's so cheap.
Wow.
And it's so much better than my current one.
Just buy it.
I'll take that. Whoa, new legs. Hell yeah, these boots are amazing. Don't mind if I do. 13
Damn.
strength. I've got to
Those
get
are hard to
these.
get.
Holy cow.
Oh my god, bro. The scarlet chest piece went nuts. Look at that.
19 stamina. Yes,
That's
please.
crazy.
Look at the stats on this bad boy.
Damn.
Yoink. Oh, wow.
And he's barely even spent $100 so far.
I've got to have this.
Yeah.
And I can't forget.
Yeah, you gotta have the
bigger
bags.
All that
Little Mitch Jones
overtime
RP there.
has finally paid off.
Man,
Look
look
at
at that.
all this gear. This is 4 weeks' work. Ah, yes. I'm practically full bits.
Oh my god.
It's going to be impossible to die. With this gear, I am unstoppable. God damn.
I also like how, look at the bar here. Auto attack is on the bar, heroic strike, charge is not even on the bar, and thunderclap is on the bar 7 times. So this is a real hardcore WoW player.
These new items look so good. And
Oh,
I'm
wow.
not done yet. Now
Look at
it's
that.
time to get fully enchanted. I've already given him all the materials for every enchant
Crusader,
I need.
wow.
And they didn't even cost that much. 100 gold fee.
That's
no
it?
problem.
Yeah. That's no big deal.
That is so
It's only like
good.
$10.
50 gold fee.
It's only like $5.
No problem.
That's half as much. Black Lotus
Another
Mafia, yeah.
50 gold
Well,
fee.
it's not a Black Lotus Mafia. You have to keep in mind that, like, the Black Lotus Mafia now are actual bots that are programmed to fly hack underneath the ground and then automatically resurrect whenever a Black Lotus is detected in the area.
No
Yeah.
problem.
And then sell them on the auction house.
Another 50 gold fee.
That's fine. Yep.
No
It's just the
problem.
price of playing the game.
50 gold fee again. No problem.
Yep.
And a final 50 gold fee. No problem.
By the way, there are people that play like this. Like, back in Cataclysm, I used to do a lot of sale runs. So, like, I didn't ever do it for, like, USD or anything like that. But I would do it for gold. And there would be people, and it was, like, obvious they were buying gold. And so I would sell them a run. And they would just, like, I'm like, hey, do you want me to do this other thing for you for, like, 10K? And they're like, yeah, sure, why not? That's okay. Yeah, I'll give you 12K for it. It's like they just don't even care. And they would just give you tons of money. It was awesome.
Now I'm fully enchanted. What a
Bro,
great
that's some really
guy.
good beer.
Alright, I'm ready to start questing. After I fully buff myself with all these consumables
He's gonna die from drowning, isn't he?
I bought from the auction house. Okay, that's everything. Let's do this. Now, it's impossible to die. There's literally no way I could ever die. I think after I've done this quest, I'll watch some dubbed anime. Dubbed is so much better than subbed. Oh, you want a piece of me? I will destroy you. Man, My new axe is so cool. These mobs are so easy. Literally nothing can kill me.
True.
I'm invincible.
Wow.
Oh my god. He netted me. I can't move. No. Come on, swim. Swim. Faster, faster. I'm drowning. No. Come on. No. I can't believe it. I've died.
And the thing is that I guarantee you guys, there are people in chat right now who are thinking, there's no way somebody would do that. Like, this is like, bro, this guy is so dumb. Like, no player is actually going to do this. But why do you think I knew exactly what was going to happen the moment that I saw where he was? Yeah, we all knew.
All that money wasted. Man, I wish I could appeal. I'd pay for it.
Well, you don't have to worry about it. You just pay somebody the next time, just pay somebody to level your character. See, that's what he should do. That's the solution right there. Yeah, pre-watch? No, I mean, you know exactly what this is going to be. I forgot to buy an elixir of water breathing for 50 gold each. Yeah, there you go. Thought he was going to disconnect from the old classic underwater bug. This is more poetic. Yeah, exactly. Seeing how many people died of drowning in hardcore, I bet there's going to be an elixir of water breathing mafia. I mean, I'm going to be honest, guys. Like, classic WoW players, I mean, they're really not that fast. Like, they're just slow. That's really it. I think that's, yeah. Is it the brain, in the brain? I think so, but I'm not sure. I don't know how this happens.
I sure wish Vice Admiral Greslik did a better job of keeping the seas safe for our trading vessels. With all the gold the trade princes have poured into the trade fleets, it ticks me off to see so many pirates running willy-nilly, raiding my ships and stealing my goods. I heard that the South Sea freebooters have set up a camp just south of here. They've been a real thorn in my side, and if Greslik won't take care of them, well, maybe you can help me get rid of them. The venture company set up a small research facility far to the north of here, southwest of the Sludge Fen. I don't know very much about what they're doing, but did manage to discover that they're experimenting with something called a samoflange. Now, what the heck is a samoflange? Well, whatever it is, I want to examine it, so I need someone to go get it. I obtained a copy of their control system operating manual. You should be able to figure out how to disengage the samoflange from it.
This is every manipulator in Hunter x Hunter ranked by a man on the internet, and we are starting with Base, who is a very good base of a manipulator with her ability Instant Lover. Anyone kissed by Base becomes immediately infatuated with her, morphing into a type of love slave who will take her command for 3 hours. Pretty basic manipulation here, simple condition, little bit of control, short period of time. It's an ability that's actually pretty overpowered at lower levels, specifically on those who aren't end users thing, kind of low level. At higher levels, however, this ability becomes for a T9 on useless, because Nen veterans aren't just going to let someone kiss them, even if it's someone of, how shall we say, Base's physical persuasions. OP early game power, but terrible late game power, which is going to land Base smack bang in the middle with a B tier. Next up we have Boki, someone who we know so little about that his abilities and power section on the Hunter x Hunter wiki is one line which reads as follows. As a Chimera ant, Boki is already stronger than the average human. That is an excellent in-depth analysis right there. But Boki, to be fair, he's also pretty standard. Manipulation as a whole is a very tried and tested field. You encounter a lot of the same sorts of conditions and achieve the same sorts of results. In Boki's case, he equips a device to a target and is then able to manipulate them using a game controller. It's unknown whether he can control more than one person at a time, in some sort of two-player mode, I suppose. All in all, though, Boki may indeed be stronger than the average human, but when it comes to manipulation, he is nothing but average. And as a result, he will be joining Base in the B tier. Next up is Ikalgo, who takes on a more left-field version of manipulation. That is, if we picture just left of our field being the graveyard, because Ikalgo engages in the morbid practice of corpse manipulation from the inside. It's a gruesome, but actually quite rare form of manipulation, because whilst in the body, Ikalgo can use the Nen ability of the corpse, which is crazy because unless post-mortem Nen is involved, the Hatsu should vanish from the corpse when the target dies. So Ikalgo actually functions as a more macabre form of crawler. In fact, if he so desired, Ikalgo could construct a body preservation facility and even build his own library of Nen abilities that he can just slip in and out of. You know, come to think of it, it's so rare that we actually see Nen users being manipulated themselves. It's usually like a standard non-Nen using person. So I don't know if it's normal to be able to use their powers or command them to use their Hatsu. And in a weird way, it's kind of like a forced activation of post-mortem Nen to briefly resurrect an ability for your own personal use. And for that factor alone, Ikalgo skyrockets as a manipulator and lands straight in the A tier, is what I would like to say.
How does a movie with a terrible 48% critical rating and only an above average 73% audience rating go on to spawn a massive television franchise with 4 spin-offs over 17 seasons, books, comic books, video games, toys, as well as 2 direct-to-DVD movies, an animated series, and a unique streaming service where millions of fans can immerse themselves in that universe whenever they want? Of course, we're talking about the science fiction phenomenon known as Stargate. It's been almost 25 years since Stargate hit theaters to those mixed reviews and has since built an army of fans. ScreenRant.com lists Stargate as the 8th greatest science fiction franchise of all time, behind Star Trek, Star Wars, The Outer Limits, The Twilight Zone, Doctor Who, Battlestar Galactica, and Planet of the Apes. Others argue that Stargate should be considered even higher and closer to those other franchises with the word star in them. Regardless of where the franchise lands in history, the real story is the unlikeliness that it sits where it does now only 25 years after it was born. But to find out, we have to travel back to the beginning and find out where Stargate started. Written by Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich, Stargate hit theaters October 28, 1994. Critics may have written off the movie, but fans enjoyed it. The film grossed more than $71 million in the United States, and almost double that overseas for a whopping $200 million worldwide. Stargate set the record for the highest grossing opening weekend for a film released in the month of October. Even though Stargate exceeded studio expectations, it was still only the 17th most successful film of 1994, falling behind blockbusters like Forrest Gump, The Lion King, and True Lies. It wasn't even the most successful science fiction movie. It was edged out by Star Trek Generations, which famously had both Kirk and Picard in the same movie together. But despite being number 17, there was something special about Stargate that people couldn't quite put their finger on. Stargate leaves you with a feeling for an untapped potential and a universe that has more questions than answers. And the movie may have even qualified as a blockbuster in 1994 had it not been cut short by huge audience films like The Santa Claus, Interview with a Vampire, and Generations, which hit theaters right on its heels. Despite these disadvantages, Stargate lingered in the mind of science fiction fans. Where else could those hieroglyphics take us in the cosmos? That is an answer we might have never known had it not been for a couple of guys working for MGM on a show called The Outer Limits. But let's get back to that in a moment. First, where did Devlin and Emmerich get the idea for a Stargate or wormhole that uses constellations as spatial coordinates to connect instantaneously to a distant planet? Some people point to the 1982 book by Pauline Gedge or the 1976 novel by Stephen Robinette. Both were titled Stargate. Or how about the 1958 Stargate book by Andre Norton, where a group of people pass through a Stargate and take refuge in a new world? Sound familiar? While it's not clear for certain where the origin of the story comes from, Devlin and Emmerich were sued in 1995 by Omar Zadie, a Shawnee, Oklahoma high school teacher who claimed they stole the idea from his manuscript titled Egyptscape, which Zadie had claimed he submitted to 20th Century Fox, and they had rejected it in 1984. His suit alleged that Studio Canal eventually acquired a copy of this manuscript and hired Devlin and Emmerich to make Stargate using Zadie's ideas. He sued everyone, including MGM, for $140 million, which was the film's estimated profit. In 1996, U.S. District Judge Robin Cawthron ruled the movie Stargate to be substantially similar to Zadie's manuscript. The judge said the main characters in both works were similar in number and roles, and the lead character in each story is involved in a time travel project. The judge also said both works proceed in a similar sequence, and the pace followed in both the movie and in the manuscript have common elements. Cawthron ruled that ordinary, reasonable people could conclude that the total concept and feel of both the film and the manuscript exhibit a substantial similarity of expression. With a ruling that seemed to lean heavily in Zadie's favor, the case was set to go to a jury for the decision. Before that could happen, Zadie settled out of court for a reported $50,000, which was a tiny fraction of the $140 million he was suing for. Some would claim his decision to settle, despite the judge's favorable ruling, was a result of a change to copyright laws in 1989. Before 1989, if you wanted to prove you owned a creative work, you would apply for a copyright notice. This change made copyright notices optional, and instead all works were automatically copywritten at the time of their creation. While the new law does protect more creators, the problem with this, as Title 17 of the U.S. Code suggests, is by not having an official copyright notice, it may reduce the amount of damages someone would receive in an infringement lawsuit. While the details of the settlement are unknown, it's possible that this change in the law may have motivated Zadie to settle as opposed to fighting a long court battle and possibly get nothing. And while there is no definitive answer where the idea for Stargate came from, in the end, it is the vision of Devlin and Emmerich that we see on the big screen. And even better news for the Stargate creators is that a financially successful movie is a potential franchise in the making. But before the duo could come back to make another Stargate movie, their success had landed them the 1996 blockbuster movie Independence Day, starring Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum. According to Devlin and Emmerich, it was their intention to come back and make 2 more Stargate movies. But as we'll find out, that would turn out to be a lot more difficult than they would know. It was during their huge success on Independence Day that, unbeknownst to them, Studio Canal, a French film production and distribution company, sold the television rights for Stargate to MGM without discussing it with the creators. Devlin and Emmerich would later voice their displeasure at this turn of events, but would go on to make films like 1998's Godzilla, The Patriot, The Day After Tomorrow, and 2012. This wasn't the end of Devlin and Emmerich with Stargate, but more on that later. Remember those guys we were talking about at MGM who were working on The Outer Limits? They were 2 of the many people who went to see Stargate in theaters and couldn't get it out of their heads. There had to be more to this universe, they thought. Brad Wright and Jonathan Glassner were in the middle of The Outer Limits Season 2. Despite working together, neither of them knew the role they were about to play in the legacy that would become Stargate. The Outer Limits was already a success, and both men were co-producers on the show. But Glassner was from Los Angeles and had grown tired of Vancouver, Canada, where the show was being made. He wanted to go home. MGM, not wanting to risk the show, asked Glassner what would it take to get him to stay. Thinking it was a long shot and would never happen, Glassner told MGM that they had this movie that would be better as a TV series. He said, "If you let me do Stargate as a series, I'd be willing to stay." The president of MGM, John Symes, who didn't seem to have any plans for the newly purchased television property, said he didn't think it could happen, but let me look into it. Little did Glassner know, his partner Wright had also asked the studio about doing a Stargate series. It was these 2 independent moves from a couple of guys who were already making a great series that likely allowed MGM to pull the trigger. MGM had 2 things they wanted. First, they had to agree to work on it together. And second, they had to keep making The Outer Limits while creating the Stargate series. Luckily for the rest of the world, both men were up to the challenge. Wright and Glassner spent 3 months studying the movie and figuring out all of the mechanics of the Stargate itself. The gate had 39 symbols on it, and it took 7 symbols to go to Abydos. Glassner wondered, where would the other symbols take people? Part of Wright's original pitch was that the show should have a sense of the early NASA program. The teams going through the gates would be explorers, like the early astronauts, and would be outmatched and outgunned by aliens. One of the things Glassner and Wright were aware of is they didn't want to be doing Star Trek. The show was set in the present and not the future, so the characters would be limited by the technology and knowledge that they currently possessed. They would be discovering everything with the audience as opposed to having scanners that told them what was happening. It made everything the characters faced more dangerous, and as a result meant higher consequences, which would keep fans on the edge of their seats. And if you're going to have a compelling show, you need a great cast. They knew they wanted to have Daniel Jackson and Jack O'Neill back on the show to keep that connection with the movie and continue the story. But they knew they needed more characters. So Tilk was created as a way to explain the Goa'uld and the Jaffa, and Glassner was adamant that they needed to have a strong female character, which became Samantha Carter. But which actors would be able to fill the shoes of Kurt Russell and James Spader? John Symes, the president of MGM Television, who had greenlit the show and was also responsible for coming up with the name SG-1, had an idea. There was an actor he knew that would be perfect for the role. It was someone he had a relationship with when he was over at Paramount, working on a little show called MacGyver. Richard Dean Anderson was already a household name and a well-known 80s television star. The president at MGM suggested having a strong star at the center of the show would likely bring in viewers, especially for a first-time series. Brad Wright felt like Anderson would be great as well. What they didn't know is Anderson was not a fan of science fiction, nor was he interested in playing a serious military guy with little or no sense of humor. Anderson told the Los Angeles Times during an interview in 1997 that he wasn't a fan of Star Trek except for being friends with Jonathan Frakes, who played Commander Riker on Star Trek The Next Generation. At 47 years old, Anderson's first words after being offered the role of O'Neill and seeing the Stargate movie and Kurt Russell's portrayal was forget it. No way.
Bonzo, no longer in possession of one's faculties, 3 fries short of a happy meal. Wacko!
He just didn't think he could play that character for a long run. But Symes wasn't taking no for an answer. He told Anderson he could do whatever he wanted with the character and that MGM had a 44-episode commitment from Showtime. Those two facts were enough to pull Anderson on board and eventually make him an all-time science fiction icon. That Showtime had picked up Stargate SG-1 at all, let alone for 44 episodes, may be the real secret to why the show was successful. Part of the original pitch by Wright wasn't only to MGM. The Outer Limits that he and Glassner were producers for aired on Showtime. This made the cable subscription service a logical landing spot for the Stargate series, as it already had a close connection with both the showrunners and MGM. Besides having incredible trust in Wright and Glassner, the 44-episode guarantee likely came as a result of Showtime's need for programming. The early 90s left Showtime frequently playing catch-up to HBO, who started having success with feature-length original movies. When upstart premium network Starz came along and secured a deal for Disney's content in 1994, it took a huge chunk of programming from Showtime. And with Showtime's original movies only having middling success, the company needed to lure subscribers in from another genre. In 1995, science fiction became their target, and with the success of The Outer Limits, ordering up a huge number of episodes for Stargate SG-1 aligned perfectly with Showtime's strategy. And as a result, the stars aligned perfectly for what would become one of the most beloved sci-fi franchises of all time. Producers on Stargate SG-1 admitted that had the show not started on Showtime, broadcast TV would have probably killed it. The initial 44-episode buy gave both MGM and producers enough time and confidence to build the show how they wanted, without fear of being canceled. The 2-season guarantee was likely the ultimate reason Richard Dean Anderson took the role, and knowing everyone had a job for at least 2 years allowed the actors and crew to get comfortable and take their time to work, build, and tell compelling stories that would bring the fans in and keep them. Showtime also gave MGM a gift. The studio complained that the show was expensive to make, and they needed more revenue. MGM arranged an agreement with Showtime that SG-1 could air in syndication 6 months after its premiere on the premium channel. All 22 Fox stations aired the first season of SG-1 after its Showtime debut, and this continued to happen for all 5 seasons on the subscription service. This same gift would eventually be the downfall of SG-1 on Showtime. The company would eventually stop renewing the series, citing they were unable to gain new subscribers for the show since people could get it on syndication so quickly. And for this reason, many fans who were watching the show at the turn of the century never realized it aired on Showtime at all. But at 8 p.m. on July 27, 1997, when the Stargate pilot aired on Showtime, it was an instant hit. The 2-hour episode received Showtime's highest ever ratings for a series premiere, with an audience of approximately 1.5 million households. The show continued to have sizable viewership right up till the end of Season 5, despite being able to bring in new subscribers. And the show might have died right there, had it not been for a network who would end up being the perfect platform for the show. But let's get back to that in a little bit. With Richard Dean Anderson already in place, the producers still needed to cast the rest of the characters, and with a thin budget and filming out of Vancouver, they would need relatively unknown actors, and they first looked to Canada. They also wanted actors who were similar to the cast from the movie, yet original at the same time. They found this in actor Michael Shanks, who went into his audition doing a spot-on impersonation of James Spader. He quickly became the Dr. Daniel Jackson they were looking for. And it wouldn't be until season 3 and a haircut that Shanks would fully drop the Spader impersonation and make the Jackson character his own.
Anyway, I'm sorry, but that just happens to be how I feel about it. What do you think?
Christopher Judge was listening to his best friend's roommate go over a line he was auditioning for. Judge had been auditioning for small, unnamed roles at the time. When the roommate stepped out, he took a peek at the script. It was for a part in a Stargate TV series. He called his agent right away and said, "Get me an audition for this part, or I am leaving." 2 days later, he had an audition. Thus, Tilk and the embodiment of the Jaffa was born.
Indeed.
For the part of Samantha Carter, they wanted an actress who could portray a strong woman, who the audience would also accept as a soldier. At the time the show was created, tens of thousands of women were deployed abroad in the U.S. military, but none served in combat. A policy enacted in 1994 prohibited women from assignment in ground combat units below the brigade level. It wouldn't be until 2013, 16 years after Stargate SG-1 aired on television, that women would be allowed to serve in direct combat. Producers knew it would take the right woman to pull off the role they wanted. She would have to have combat training, but also be a brilliant scientist and a beautiful woman. Amanda Tapping was selected for the role, a mostly unknown Canadian actress who had done some commercials and had a few small roles in TV movies. Tapping stepped into the role and created a character with amazing depth who would become not only integral to SG-1, but also to the spin-off show to come.
And just because my reproductive organs are on the inside instead of the outside, doesn't mean I can't handle whatever you can handle.
Tapping, Shanks, and Judge were selected from 25 promising actors auditioning for the roles. The trio was said to gravitate towards each other during the audition process, lending to an early promise of on-screen chemistry. Shanks would later tell the story that it was after watching Richard Dean Anderson film an episode of MacGyver that would inspire him to choose an acting career. The cast also included Don S. Davis playing General Hammond. Davis had previously been cast as an authority figure, playing a sheriff, warden, or military man in several TV shows such as Twin Peaks and Knots Landing, among others. Davis also had a connection to MacGyver. He was the stunt double for Dana Elcar, who played Peter Thornton on the show with Richard Dean Anderson. Terrell Rothery, a Canadian actress, rounded out the cast with her role as Dr. Janet Fraser, Chief Medical Officer of the newly formed Stargate Command. From this humble beginning, with so many unknown and untested actors, no one would have guessed that Stargate SG-1 would eventually become the longest-running science fiction show of all time. But before that could happen, they needed to make a pilot. Stargate SG-1 was filmed in and around Vancouver, British Columbia. The main setting of the show, the fictional Stargate Command, was filmed on Stage 5 at Bridge Studios. The fictional Stargate Command was supposedly located at the very real Cheyenne Mountain Air Force Station near Colorado Springs, Colorado. You may recognize it from the movie War Games with Matthew Broderick. And for that reason, it was important that establishing shots of that facility were taken to keep the setting of the show squarely in the minds of fans. With permission from the U.S. Air Force, half a dozen stock shots of the real Cheyenne Mountain complex were taken 10 days before the premiere of the pilot episode. These shots would be the only establishing shots used of the actual facility for the first 8 seasons. During the filming, Michael Shanks asked why they were shooting a pilot when the show had already been greenlit for 44 episodes. Then the reality hit him that the show had 44 episodes, but not necessarily he, nor any of the recently cast actors. Luckily, Children of the Gods was released, and Showtime was very happy. Shanks recalled breathing a sigh of relief, knowing he had work for at least the next 2 years. Stargate SG-1 was a hit both on Showtime and in syndication, but both platforms had a different set of rules. Showtime pushed for the use of nudity, insisted their viewers wanted it, and since it was allowed, Wright and Glassner should utilize it. The problem was, it wasn't the show they were making. Wright remembers arguing vocally that there should be no nudity and no swearing. And in fact, that is why it is only in the pilot episode. Wright ended up winning the argument, and he felt so strongly about it, he remade those nude scenes in the pilot so the show wouldn't have any problems in syndication. And this is the way the show went for the first 2 years. After the first 44 episodes, Showtime ordered another 44 episodes for a total of 88. Having that much flexibility gave the actors and writers a chance to fully explore the characters and develop them for the audience. The U.S. Department of the Air Force cooperated closely with producers on the show. They read every script for mistakes in military bearing, and even helped with plausible background stories for all the characters. The Air Force was reported to be very proud of their representation in Stargate SG-1, and it was often used as a recruiting tool. 2 successful Air Force Chiefs of Staff appeared as themselves in Season 4's Prodigy and Season 7's Lost City. Visitors to the Air Force's Cheyenne Mountain complex frequently asked questions about the existence of the Stargate. These questions became so common that Cheyenne Mountain installed what looked like a high-security door on one of their storage rooms. The room may have been filled with brooms and detergent, but it was labeled Stargate Command. This likely led to only more questions than answers, but it showed the Air Force's commitment to the show, which would last all 10 seasons. For the first 5 seasons, everything on the show seemed to be flying high. Glassner did leave the show after Season 3 to return to Los Angeles as he'd wanted to do before starting the Stargate series. But story editor filled in as co-executive producer by Season 4. New writers came in, and the show expanded. Wright recognized that a show has to grow and evolve naturally. That evolution continued, but after 5 seasons, Showtime was no longer interested in renewing the program. Syndication had significantly slowed the stream of new subscribers coming to Showtime for Stargate SG-1. And even though a lot of people still watch the show, the premium channel didn't want to continue with the financial commitment. But the show was riding high. Stargate SG-1 aired in over 100 countries with a weekly worldwide viewership of around 10 million. SG-1 was especially popular in the United Kingdom, Germany, France, and Australia. A little to the embarrassment of Wright, he was surprised the show was so much more popular in the UK than it was in Canada, where it aired on Space. So it was at the end of 5 seasons, the cast and crew thought their run may be ending. But as we mentioned earlier, there was a network out there waiting in the wings that would prove to be perfect for Stargate. Already broadcasting shows like Andromeda, Farscape, and Battlestar Galactica, the Sci-Fi Channel picked up MGM's offer to continue the show into a 6th season. The budget was smaller, and everyone assumed the 6th season would be the last for SG-1. It aired in the 9 p.m. slot between The Dead Zone and Farscape. Cora Nemec came on as a regular in the 6th season after having a guest role the previous year playing the character Jonas Quinn. Nemec's character replaced Daniel Jackson after Michael Shanks decided to leave the show. Shanks and the writers were having creative differences over his character. He didn't feel Daniels was being used as well or as creatively as he could. Shanks still appeared in 7 episodes during Season 6, playing both Daniel Jackson and the voice of Thor. But rumors persisted that Shanks' salary and his desire to work on other projects was a factor as well. Regardless of why, Shanks came back to the table and worked out a deal that would keep him on the show. And when everyone predicted the 6th season would be the last, Sci-Fi unexpectedly renewed SG-1 at the last minute. The 6th and 7th seasons made Stargate SG-1 Sci-Fi's highest-rated original series, with an average of 2 million views per episode. This elevated Sci-Fi into the top 10 cable networks in the United States. Despite that, for the next few years, producers believed each season would be the last, and repeatedly wrote huge season finales just in case. Season 8 brought more changes. Sci-Fi cut the length of an SG-1 season down to 20 episodes from 22. General Hammond was relegated to a reoccurring character, and Jonas Quinn's story arc ended. Dr. Janet Fraser was killed, and Season 8 would also be the last time Richard Dean Anderson led his SG-1 team. But more on Anderson in a moment. Something huge took place during Season 8 of SG-1, and that was the premiere of Stargate Atlantis, a spin-off series Wright had been planning as a movie since Showtime canceled the show at the end of Season 5. Once the ratings on Sci-Fi were going so well, they pushed their Atlantis idea into Season 6, and then eventually to Season 7. Wright intended to set the new show under the ice of Antarctica, It would have replaced Stargate Command as Earth's conduit to other worlds. Not knowing whether they would be renewed or not, producers chose to end Season 7 of SG-1 with a two-parter that would act as a bridge between SG-1 and the new spin-off, which could either be another TV show or even a movie. Wright and Cooper rewrote the script as a two-part Season 7 finale and moved the setting of the story. Instead of under Antarctica, the city of Atlantis was moved to the Pegasus Galaxy. This change addressed a couple of problems. First, if the new show was local, then why wouldn't Stargate Command just come to the aid of the Atlantis expedition? Also, moving them out of reach would give the producers a fresh start with new ideas. Atlantis received the green light November 17, 2003. It premiered on the Sci-Fi Channel on July 16, 2004, running concurrently with Stargate SG-1 Season 8. This meant that both Wright and Cooper had to develop twice as many episodes as usual. Despite burning the candle at both ends, they seemed up for the challenge. From the start, the producers had to rule out casting well-known stars as a result of the financial pressures they were suffering paying the cast of SG-1. Actor David Hewlett had already appeared in a guest role of 3 episodes of SG-1, and the producers realized the intelligent, self-centered, awkward character of Dr. Rodney McKay was exactly who they wanted in Atlantis. Hewlett was previously most recognized for his role in the cult classic suspense movie Cube from 1997. Co-starring with Hewlett during that first season was Joe Flanagan, playing Lieutenant Colonel John Shepard, Tori Higginson as Dr. Elizabeth Weir, Rachel Luttrell playing Taylor Emagon, and Rainbow Sun Franks as Lieutenant Aiden Ford. Atlantis got a little help during that first season from Anderson and Shanks, reprising their roles to give the fans a feeling of Stargate normalcy. While it didn't take long for the Atlantis cast to grow legs, it wouldn't be until the second season before the show really started to hit its stride. It was at the start of that second season when a completely unknown actor would come on board and help take Atlantis to new heights. The future Dothraki chief had no idea that this wasn't the only time he'd call Atlantis his home. The future DC superhero and King of Atlantis would win the hearts of Stargate fans before ever becoming a household name.
Where are we?
Gentlemen's 302 Bay. Saw you, scooped you up, heading back to Atlantis.
Thank God.
Jason Momoa wasn't the only change to Stargate in 2004. Fans had to stay on their toes to keep up with the franchise that year. Sci-Fi paired the two shows together on Friday nights, and the writers wrote the shows accordingly. For the most part, the continuity of the two shows remained cleanly separated, but there were several times when viewers would follow the story better by bouncing back and forth between SG-1 and Atlantis. SG-1's 9th season saw the departure of Anderson, but added new regulars Beau Bridges and Ben Browder. After a debut episode in Season 8, followed by appearances in 8 episodes of Season 9, Claudia Black's popular reception earned her a position in the regular cast during Season 10. Fans were disappointed that Anderson would no longer be a regular on the show. The science fiction icon wanted to spend more time with his daughter and felt like his run with the show had gone on long enough. But when Wright offered to promote Anderson to General and have him in the show less frequently, he loved that idea because he was still able to spend time with his Stargate family without carrying the burden of the lead. While it was good news that Anderson was able to be a part of SG-1 for all 10 seasons, a hole was left for who would take over leadership of the team after the 8th season. Amanda felt that Sam's character was the logical person to replace Jack as the leader of the team, but with tapping on maternity leave at the beginning of Season 9, Cameron Mitchell was introduced as the leader of SG-1 and would be the catalyst for bringing the team back together. Fans reacted negatively to Browder's character taking over leadership of the team, and Tapping admitted to feeling put off after learning someone else would lead SG-1. The eventual decision was that the two would co-lead the team, although they left Browder's character in the official leadership position. By Season 10, Tapping considered leadership of the team to be a moot point, as both Carter and Mitchell were the same rank, and Tilk and Jackson were not members of the U.S. military. As SG-1 was winding down, Atlantis was taking off. The creators found themselves with a problem with the character of Lieutenant Aiden Ford, played by Sun Franks. The actor himself felt the character wasn't working as intended and was underused as a result. Despite attempts to make him more important, he ended up downgraded as a recurring character. To replace him, they created Ronan Dex as a sidekick to Lieutenant Colonel John Shepard. But finding an actor with the physical presence and acting ability necessary was not easy. Then they met Jason Momoa. The future TV and movie star was often thought of as Atlantis' version of Chewbacca. In fact, Shepard occasionally refers to Ronan as Chewie. At 6 feet 5 inches, Momoa ended up having the perfect physicality for the role, and his ability to play his toughness off the other characters lent a tremendous amount of weight to the whole show. X-Files veteran Mitch Pileggi and Kevin Smith were added to the cast in recurring roles of Colonel Stephen Caldwell and Major Evan Lorne. Paul McGillian's character, the Scottish Dr. Carson Beckett, also became a regular in Season 2. Seasons 3 and 4 changed the cast lineup again. Beckett was killed in the Season 3 episode Sunday, then brought back at the end of Season 4 as a recurring character. The new medical chief was Jennifer Keller, played by Jewel Staite, who was introduced in the Season 3 finale, was a recurring character in Season 4, and became a regular in Season 5. Staite had already played a guest role in Season 2 as a female wraith named Elia. She did so well, the producers agreed they wanted her for a more important role. Amanda Tapping Samantha Carter crossed over from SG-1 to Atlantis as a guest star during the first 3 seasons. But in Season 4, she became a regular as the new leader of the expedition. At the same time, Tori Higginson's Elizabeth Weir went from series regular to a recurring character. Season 5 finally saw science fiction legend Robert Picardo become a series regular as Richard Woolsey. He'd been a guest star on SG-1 for 7 episodes during Seasons 7, 9, and 10, and on Atlantis he had a recurring role during Season 3 and a guest appearance during Season 4. In Season 5, he replaced Samantha Carter as commander of the Atlantis expedition. Higginson declined to appear as a guest star. Instead, her character Weir was portrayed by Michelle Morgan. Joseph Malazzi was a producer for 287 episodes of the Stargate franchise. His one giant regret was missing an opportunity to bring the fans an Atlantis movie. Late during Atlantis' 5th season, they didn't know whether there would be a Season 6. So Robert Cooper suggested they do a 2-hour, 2-part episode for the beginning of a potential Season 6. And if they didn't get it, then it could become the Stargate Atlantis movie. They would need an extra month of production. But if approved, they would be ahead of the game no matter what the studio decided. Malazzi proposed it to decision makers, but the studio never got back to them with an answer. Malazzi regrets waiting for a decision and wished he'd been more aggressive in making it happen, even though it was never shot. A script was written for the Atlantis movie, Stargate Extinction. According to Malazzi, the movie would have taken Atlantis back to the Pegasus galaxy via a life-or-death adventure. The movie would have included an eventual reconciliation with Todd the Wraith and reset the Atlantis characters to begin new adventures in the Pegasus galaxy again. Season 5 would be the last season for Stargate Atlantis, and for many fans, the last moment of success for the franchise. An agreement was reached by MGM, Sci-Fi, and Stargate producers that Atlantis would end and a new show, Stargate Universe, would be produced. A follow-on movie would be made to bring a more fulfilling closure to the Atlantis storyline. But the window to produce Stargate Extinction would close, and the entire focus was put on the Stargate Universe series. When Stargate Universe was produced, Wright and Cooper took it in a totally different direction. The recent success of grittier, realistic camera-shaking shows like Battlestar Galactica seemed to be the future of the franchise, with stories taking on a more dramatic and serious tone. But like New Coke in the 80s, Stargate fans did not like the new formula and taste of Stargate Universe. While blame is shared all around for the change in direction, Cooper is charged by Wright in a February 2009 interview with Digital Spy as being the one driving the show to a different and unique look. Interviews following the failure of Universe steered the blame toward the newly forming streaming platforms, MGM's financial woes, and even the fans. When trying to explain the failure of the show, Wright said he didn't feel that it was the quality of what they were making. He shifted blame to the show being moved to Tuesday nights, as well as fan backlash following the huge shift in style from SG-1 and Atlantis to the new series. Fans of the original shows were used to camaraderie and a high moral compass from characters. However, the universe roles lacked many of those qualities, and the gritty, realistic storylines were a little too realistic for many fans. As a result, not our Stargate website started popping up, and viewership for the new show plummeted. Fans described the show as glossy yet gritty, and that more focus was put on the style and look of the show, as opposed to the development of the story and characters. It just didn't feel like the Stargate they knew. Little did everyone realize at the time, the Stargate machine was headed into a perfect storm. The fan backlash also came as a result of an abrupt ending of the very popular Atlantis show, and fans were used to having options. Not only did SG-1 and Atlantis have overlap, but the feel of the shows were very similar. When Universe came in all by itself, and very different from its predecessors, it was hard to quell the despair of longtime fans. It was also at this time that internet culture was finding its voice and realizing that regular people could have broad impact on change. Facebook and Twitter were just beginning to dominate in social media, and the first iPhone was only a year old when Atlantis' cancellation was announced. The power of public outcry was starting to ramp up, and it was all pointed at Brad Wright, MGM, and Sci-Fi. But it is also pointed out that after 15 seasons of two very successful science fiction series, Wright, producers, and the production companies had earned the right to try something new creatively to keep the series growing. The realistically shot season arc shows were growing, and this was an opportunity for the franchise to make a move that industry experts predicted would be the future. And despite what people were saying, Wright hadn't forgotten about the fans. The successful direct-to-DVD SG-1 movies, The Ark of Truth and Continuum, had been very successful in continuing the SG-1 story, and there was no reason to believe that the same thing couldn't be done for Atlantis. But the storm was coming. 9 months before the announced cancellation of Atlantis on November 5, 2007, the US dollar fell to its weakest position against the Canadian dollar since tracking began in 1975. At only 92 US cents per Canadian dollar, the Canadian production, being financed by American dollars, to make a big budget TV show was costing them more money than ever before. The exchange rate was one of the benefits of producing TV shows in Canada. MGM had been paying as little as 60 cents on the dollar in Canada at the peak in 2002. But the steady decline of the dollar over the next 6 years was putting a heavy burden on MGM to pay for production north of the border. It was also in 2007 that Netflix began offering subscribers a streaming service option. While not taken seriously in the beginning, the decrease in data speeds and bandwidth costs allowed customers to begin downloading movies from the internet. The decline of DVD sales were steadily increasing each year, and when Hulu launched in 2010 as a direct competitor to Netflix, the streaming race was on. While DVDs would go on to be a viable source of media even to this day, the financial success of making movies that released direct to DVD, like the two previous Stargate SG-1 movies, no longer existed. When Stargate Universe launched its second season in September 2010, MGM would file for bankruptcy only 2 months later. The financial hardships and U.S. recession had finally caught up with the 86-year-old movie company. The same month, Sci-Fi announced it would not be picking up a third season of Stargate Universe. And with MGM in no position to be selling shows, new episodes of Stargate of any iteration ended May 9, 2011. The previous month, Wright confirmed to the public that the proposed Stargate Atlantis movie, as well as a third SG-1 movie and a movie he'd wanted to do with all three casts, had been shelved indefinitely. The Stargate sets were struck in Vancouver, and props from the show started showing up on eBay and other auction sites on the internet. Despite the sudden decline of the franchise, there was no doubt of its success. And while most of the credit tends to go to Wright, Cooper, Glassner, and all the actors, there were several key players that were crucial to the magic of Stargate on television. Peter DeLuise wrote, directed, produced,
Uh-oh.
If you went back many years, you would have been told that classic servers were never gonna happen. But people asked for them on forums, on social media, and even at BlizzCon for a very long time, and eventually we got them. If you went back a bit less time, you never would have thought Blizzard would put time into creating seasonal servers for WoW Classic. And now not only have we had one seasonal server, but a second one is on the way. And if you went back a couple of months, no one believed that hardcore would go from a niche thing on Era Realms to something that Blizzard will look to make official by releasing their own realms.
I do think that Blizzard waited too long for the hardcore realms. I think if they had come out last month or so, preferably 2 months ago, then yeah, for sure people would want to play them a little bit more. But like classic WoW, it has ups, it has downs. Yeah, I don't know if it's still got that same level of hype.
Instances of it'll never happen happening. Yeah. Sometimes enough people wanting something is enough for it to really happen. Yep. And it should happen again. For the topic of today's video, Classic Plus. Classic Plus has been an idea that's been talked about for as long as Blizzard has confirmed that Classic Realms will be existing. What if instead of going down the line of expansions once again, Blizzard instead committing to finishing storylines that began in vanilla, adding new...
You know where they should have stopped? They should have stopped right here. Like, I think that they should have done BC and Wrath. Like, it was the right decision. But Vanilla WoW was the best. And I think BC and Wrath didn't even come close. Vanilla WoW was just like... It was so good. It was the best.
Adding new content in line with the spirit of the game and growing vanilla World of Warcraft into something relatable, but ultimately a little bit different too. So today I'm going to go into why Classic Plus is ultimately the true end game of classic servers, and is something that should be seriously considered by Blizzard. I want to start off by saying that Classic WoW for an MMORPG is a very popular game. Little has changed development-wise.
Like, what the fuck is this? Look at how many people there are that are actually just playing classic World of Warcraft.
And what Blizzard did well over a decade ago now is pulling in hundreds of thousands, maybe even at points millions of players. Now we don't have exact player numbers on how many people are active in the game, but we do have some information on this matter. Activision Blizzard's quarterly reports are published publicly, and one of the bits of information you can find there is the monthly amount of active users across the different development studios. Here's the most recent one for the quarter between April 1st ending June 30th. Across Blizzard, the most notable performers were Diablo, with Diablo 4 coming out in June, and Diablo Immortal saw an increase of players because of this. They also mentioned that Dragonflight is outperforming more recent expansions for the same point in time. Importantly,
I think that makes sense. I mean, Dragonflight, I mean, who the fuck would be playing the game if it was Shadowlands? This was during Korthia. Korthia was like the worst patch Blizzard's ever made.
For Blizzard, it also says that an individual who accesses the same game on 2 platforms or devices in the relevant period would generally be counted as a single user, and in June they saw 26 million monthly active users. Let's say an estimate of 12 million of those were on Diablo as the bulk of players. 4 million on Overwatch, is that too few perhaps? I know the game's taken a hit since the PvE cancellation, but I reckon it's more popular than you'd expect.
Yeah, I bet there's a lot of people that play Overwatch.
Million perhaps on retail WoW. We know that it's exceeding previous...
I think there's probably like at least 300, 400 people on retail WoW.
Expansions, it has frequent content releases, and a roadmap for the future too, which leaves about 4 million users left between the remaining games. Their Classic, on average, had 1/3 of the players that retail does. We're still looking at about 2 million monthly active users. Again, this seems a little bit high, and it may peak at that amount with patch releases. Even if it was literally half of that and Classic saw 1 million monthly active users, that would work out to a bare minimum of just over 33,000 unique players every single day for 30 days in a row.
That's a lot.
So in reality, it's going to be a 6-digit figure quite easily, I reckon. Let's bring up some other MMOs.
Well, I bet there's the number one MMO, Diablo 4. I think that obviously Classic WoW has a tremendous appeal that retail WoW can't capture, and no other MMO can capture. Classic WoW is the only MMO, besides maybe RuneScape, I don't really know a lot about RuneScape, but it's one of the only MMOs, at least, that leveling truly matters. The whole world matters. Like, getting professions while leveling is still meaningful. Doing things before level 60 makes a difference. It was insane. Like, I can't... Sometimes I think about how good Classic WoW was. Like, I'll lay in bed and I'll think about, like, how good Classic WoW was and, like, how good Elden Ring was. And I'll just think about it. Like, how the fuck did this even happen?
That are in active development to see what kind of daily, non-unique player counts there are. New World had just got a major update not long ago. Under 25,000 players peak for the past month.
No, it's not true. The new update that New World had was a fucking a battle pass, okay? So it was not really a big update. The last time New World had an update was Brimstone Sands, and it was like maybe 8 months ago or something.
Dark peaked over 40,000 in the last month, average about 25,000 or so.
Yeah.
Black Desert Online, daily average of about 25,000. This does have another launcher though, so this doesn't show the full picture. There is a site that checks RuneScape's player count every 5 minutes, which is publicly displayed information on either game's homepages. At the far right of this graph, you can see the most recent player counts, with old school RuneScape being somewhere around 92,000 players as a monthly average, and RuneScape 3 around 25,000. We can look at Classic in a different way too through Ironforge.pro. This counts the number of characters logged in raids or arenas each week. However, this will count alts as separate characters. Even still, the most recent reset showed just under 430,000 characters. In fact, the two biggest Classic realms, Gehennas in Europe and Benediction in North America, have more non-unique players raiding and PvPing alone than most other MMOs have total players.
There's a lot of people that like Classic WoW. I mean, like, it's really not a surprise. Like, whenever Classic WoW came out, it was like a massive cultural movement. WoW, it's weird to explain it to somebody that wasn't around back then, but WoW was as popular or more popular than, like, Fortnite or Minecraft is now. Like, WoW had that cultural, like, relevance. It was so crazy.
I'm getting at here is that Classic World of Warcraft, in the grand scheme of things, is a very big MMO with a huge number of players daily. Many other MMOs will be celebrating record players with what Classic sees regularly. Clearly, there is a demand for a slower paced, simpler, and straight up mechanically easier MMO.
People don't want to play really, really ball-bustingly hard games with other people that they can be punished for those other people's mistakes. It's just not a good way to retain a large audience. Like, yeah, maybe you can have some people like that, but it's just never going to hit that mainstream appeal.
Classic is currently meeting that demand, but as we progress on through expansions, things do start to noticeably change. Endgame content starts to seriously ramp up in difficulty, class design begins to move away from the familiarity of vanilla, and more systems are added into the game. Wrath, even more so than Kata, feels like a turning point here. Ulduar was a difficult raid for Classic.
Ulduar was why we got Classic Hardcore.
Now, don't get me wrong, every raid ever will see a drop-off in players the longer it goes on, but have you seen the week-by-week drop in raiders during this phase of Wrath of the Lich King Classic on Ironforge.pro?
Well, the reason why it went down is because the raid's too hard. That's why. It's because people suck dick at the game and they can't play it. It's not like this is a secret. It happened in retail WoW whenever it came out back in 2009. People are garbage. Too many dad guilds died. Yeah, exactly. It was just long and boring. No, it's because people are bad.
Oh, but see this and think harder raid does not necessarily equal better raid for the majority of players. And trust me, Cataclysm is going to be more challenging than Wrath.
Cataclysm will be the reckoning. Cataclysm raids, I would say, were the first massive jump up in difficulty in WoW's history. Like, if you compare how BWD and like Bastion of Twilight were back in like Cataclysm whenever it came out, it was fucking brutal. Like, the mechanics were actually hard, there were a lot of things happening, and it was all at the same time. I think Cataclysm raids being so hard is why a lot of people quit. Because I remember back in Wrath of the Lich King at the end of the expansion, everybody was running Pug raids. And then as soon as Cataclysm came out, that entire Pug raiding scene died. because the game was too hard.
Long shot. Also, Classic Era getting more popular right now might just not be the biggest of coincidences. And it's not the hardcore scene that has grown on it either. Just your regular vanilla WoW enjoyers are populating the Era realms once again. And Classic Era should continue to exist regardless of what happens, of course. But I can guarantee that nearly every single player there at the moment would at least try Classic Plus.
They would.
Classic is still, to this day, a very popular MMO. The player base is there for Classic Plus to happen, and I'm sure of it. But what about Blizzard actually committing to it and making Classic Plus, though? That's where things tend to get a bit more complicated. This is where time, innovation, and ultimately, money come in. Back in the day, of course, games had far shorter development.
I feel like it's probably easier to develop Classic Plus than develop new Dragonflight content. Like, what the fuck do I know? But, like, it sure seems like it'd be easier to make something that looks like it's 15 years old.
Cycles. It's amazing to see what studios could get done in a couple of years. EverQuest began development in '96 and released in '99. Vanilla itself took an estimated 4 to 5 years of development.
And that was a long time.
And rather famously, the interior for Molten Core for Classic was designed in a few days as a proof of concept to work on a bigger raid than what Onyxia's Lair offered at the time. These days, it's not just re-releasing Classic though, it's rebuilding it to work with Blizzard's modern infrastructure. This has been something we've been made aware of at many different points throughout the game's history so far. This is why you've started to see modern features on the Classic client, such as the reconnect button if you DC.
Just wait till we get the store button on the Classic client. That's whenever we're really going to be back in 2004.
AFK for too long, and more recently the updated Dragonflight options menu. So Blizzard are probably working with a whole lot of random code and scripts and figuring out how to make them work again without totally breaking them when they turn them back on. Meaning for newer assets, encounters and so on, it's still going to be a fair amount of work, right from design, art, sound, all the way to the end product. Also at Blizzard, I get the impression they move existing staff around to suit the needs of different teams, rather than hiring someone new to fill gaps which are presented. It does make more sense after all from a financial and company point of view. I bet recently Diablo 4 has been a huge focus for Blizzard, and it seems they've really cleared space to put a lot of effort into that.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Dragonflight has been getting content at a pace we have not seen for many years in retail World of Warcraft. And Classic has had a smaller team so far, but there is plenty going on. Wrath of the Lich King is progressing, we've just had updates to Era, we have hardcore servers and a new seasonal at some point. All this is good and everything, but outside of the main Classic game, of course talking about Wrath here, there has been so much time between releases. And during this downtime, the rate at which we're progressing through the current Classic expansion is not getting any slower either. When Season of Mastery was announced as a yearly thing, I thought there would be 2, maybe 3 months of downtime between each season. Well, there's
no way they can do Season of Mastery. Like, nobody wants to level a character for 3 months only to have it for 9 more months. People like being able to have something and then hold on to it. I think that's the problem that Season of Mastery had.
Some fun stats for you. Season of Mastery Naxxramas came out over a year ago now, on July 28th, 2022. In fact, Season of Mastery itself released 16th of November 2021 and closed February 14th, 2023. That's 456 days or just under 1 year and 3 months. The Burning Crusade Classic launched 1st June 2021, and Wrath Classic came out...
Do you think people that play Classic want to have to re-level every 3 months? I don't really know if that's true, man. And I think also, like, you're definitely right that there's like an audience for that, but I don't think that they can really, like, you can't really have a healthy community for that. Like, yeah, sure, there's going to be some people, but I think that's not really enough to, like, really justify development. You have to do something that's more long-term. And I think even so, like, I think doing something that's more long-term would hit a much wider audience too.
on the 26th of September 2022. Between those dates is 483 days, or just under 1 year and 4 months. In total, the Burning Crusade Classic was out for just about 1 more month than Season of Mastery was, which is kind of crazy to think about. Which, of course, at this point in the video, we get onto something we were going to talk about eventually: the money. Blizzard won't do Classic Plus because it will cost them money. You've probably heard it, and there is definitely something in that statement, but I don't believe it's the cost of developing it that's the problem so much as the opportunity cost of not developing something else. The Classic is really successful as an MMORPG, but not as successful across Blizzard's range of games. And I bet you are waiting for me to bring it up, but over at Jagex, allegedly RuneScape 3 generates higher overall revenue due to their microtransactions, despite old school RuneScape nearing 4 times the amount of monthly players.
That's one of the unfortunate things nowadays, is the microtransactions do make a lot of money, even if people don't like them.
World of Warcraft, I think retail has more players for sure, and you know what else it also has more of? Microtransactions.
Yeah,
I would be very confident that it's going to be getting a lot more work put into it, because what Blizzard can earn back from it is going to be much higher than what they can with Classic. We did just have the WoW token put into Classic though. This will have added some extra value to this version of the game from a financial point of view, and if you take a look at the historic price,
I think that's one of the reasons why people like the Classic WoW, is there's just none of that shit in there. It's just a game, and that's it. That's all there is to it. It's just a game. Of the Classic tokens so far,
it's been consistently dropping in all regions. For me, this suggests there are more people paying for tokens and posting it on the auction house relative to those purchasing it with in-game gold. The token, however, is just for Wrath. In vanilla, there is no microtransactions, no token, and only a subscription fee. And for games these days, that's, well, it's not really how it works anymore, is it? Is there another online subscription-based game that's this popular with no token?
There would be. There would be if everybody back in 2012 would have quit the fucking game whenever I said that the store mounts were bullshit. We wouldn't have them. But nobody wanted to listen to me, and everybody called me a fucking idiot. And you know what? You get what you fucking deserve.
And no microtransaction. These days you've got to min-max that revenue via several different sources, and that is problematic for vanilla. Vanilla is also far more economy driven than later versions of the game. Gold retains value throughout the entire duration of the game, and the ability to trade it for real life money would very much harm the integrity of the game to an enormous degree, more so than it already does through people buying gold from bots, that is. Vanilla almost feels as though it is unmonetizable beyond the subscription fee. So
I think if they try to add in microtransactions to vanilla WoW, people are not going to be okay with it. I do really, I don't think that they should be okay with it. Like, this is a 15-year-old game. Like, just don't do it.
For new content to really have a chance to be added, there would have to very clearly be an extremely large demand for it to happen from the player base. And I think this is one of the big factors holding the potential of the game mode back. 100 people can say they hate microtransactions, but it takes one person to engage with it enough for it to be worth it. How is Classic Plus going to see dev time when currently it's hard capped at $15 a month per person, when Dragonflight or indeed other Blizzard games have a...
The reason why Blizzard should do it is because it attracts people to the other versions of the game. Like, I guarantee you that there are people that come back to play Classic WoW and then try out Dragonflight because they get tired of playing Classic WoW. 100% that happens.
Whole range of different ways for money to be spent on them. This is why if you really want to see it, it's worth asking loud and clear for Classic Plus. If enough people get behind it, I think it will give it the greatest chance of existing. And it doesn't have to be perfect, and believe me, for many people it will not be. And between the choice of it's not perfect for everyone and it doesn't exist is kind of a no-brainer to me. Classic Plus would offer huge opportunities for the long term of this game though. It would be a chance to take the story of vanilla vanilla in a different direction. I've done near...
I don't think they should take the story in a different direction hardly at all. Like, just make a few more raids, do some more quests, do something like the AQ event again, add in maybe a couple of new zones, and then that's it, right? You don't need to reinvent everything.
Enough an hour's worth of content just on the loose ends of vanilla, or ideas that were scrapped, and they are both some of my most popular videos recently. As Classic naturally progresses into expansions with harder content, more class changes and more additional systems, Classic Plus would offer fresh experiences for people who do want the slower paced, simpler, and straight up easier game. Classic's popularity proves that there is a niche in the MMO market for the type of game that it is.
It's not even a niche, man. There's a lot of mouth breathers. Like what are we talking about, a niche? Like, this is a massive silent majority.
If this whole thing was just nostalgia, it would be long gone by now, but it is not. We got classic servers, we got seasonal servers, we got hardcore servers, and one day I would very much like to see Classic Plus servers.
I would too.
And that's about all I have for you today. Probably a bit of a different take.
I think that's the most important thing for Blizzard to do. If Blizzard makes a Classic Plus, I think the game like Classic WoW is going to have a great future. But I also don't think that players, like, there will be some players that do, but I really don't think that players should accept microtransactions at all in Classic Plus. Like, I don't think so. I mean, they don't even have GMs to fix the game. Like, it's been $15. They're not even developing anything anymore. Like, what the fuck are we doing?
On Classic Plus, I didn't want to go into the gameplay systems too much, as just getting Classic Plus to be committed to in the first place is kind of the bigger deal at the moment. There are certainly issues with it, which I have highlighted in this video, but at the end of the day, a for-profit company is going to do for-profit things, so I hope enough people make it apparent that Classic Plus is something worth investing into. And I don't usually ask, but
I don't think that they should do Classic Plus if they're going to have to add microtransactions into it. Like, don't even bother. If, like, you're going to put, like, store mounts and WoW tokens and boosts, just don't even make it. Just don't bother. Don't waste your time.
Do share the message if you do want to see Classic Plus one day. It doesn't have to be on this video either, but posting on forums, social media, even on the comments here, wherever really, let Blizzard know that you're interested in Classic Plus. A lot of things have happened in Classic because the community has asked for it and kept asking for it. Maybe one day Classic Plus can too. But as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon.
There it is. Or if it was only cosmetics? Nope. Nothing. Nothing, bro. Like, you should not accept any of this shit. What is this? Nothing. Like, you're paying $15 a month to play a game that came out 20 years ago. Get the fuck out of here. Like, I'm gonna lose my goddamn mind. Cosmetics are fair? Nope. If they add cosmetics, I don't know, I might play it because I'm a streamer, but if I wasn't a streamer, I wouldn't fucking play it. It's an abomination. Absolutely not. Would you be excited if they announced Cata Classic? Yeah. Sure. Yeah, but I mean, like, not, I mean, I would play it for content, but, like, besides that, no, that's whatever to me, man. It's a slippery slope. Bro, it's not a slippery, that's a cliff. Yeah, no, man, like, no way. It's done, Final Fantasy 14, $30 to $50 amount. Yeah, it's like a new game. Like, I don't really... Look, I have given up on expecting gamers to have a backbone. I've given up. Video game players deserve to get fucked in the ass. That's just the way it is. So I'm not going to go and get angry or upset about this kind of stuff because that's life. Like, people, like, I'm going to get outvoted. People are going to be like, well, I've got the money, I can spend it. Acting like they're pimps. It's a consumer thing. Yeah, it is. Most gamers are addicts. It is what it is. Yeah, exactly. Do you think the intent is for Classic to catch up with retail? No, I don't think so. I don't know what they're gonna do now. I don't know. I don't think they even really planned for it. This is a good video. It's a Willy video. We'll link it. Anybody like Willy is one of the only people that makes like classic WoW content, man. We knew you weren't a gamer, loser. Yeah, I'm different, of course. You say out while spending thousands on gacha? Yeah, because it's, bro, I make money off the videos. I write that shit off my taxes. Like, I give a fuck. It doesn't even matter to me. And also, I said I gave up on this shit. Like, I'm not gonna go and fight this fucking battle whenever everybody else doesn't care. Fuck that. I'm just gonna have fun, make content, and do what works. Yeah, I'm not a martyr, man. I'm not a, I don't want to make a movement. Like, what the fuck? I don't want to do that. We gamers deserve everything. Yeah, they do. Did it actually matter? You have a big influence? Really? Then why didn't it matter? Then why they keep making the store mounts? Yeah, then why they keep doing that? What happened there?
Listen closely to what you are told, and do not quickly trust or distrust, for even friends serve their own ends, adventurer. Our great war chief knows this, and to prove that there are warlocks within the Horde who do not wish to destroy it from within, or gain control over it, I have volunteered to aid our young leader in any way I can. Ha! You've done it! Thrall will be so pleased. I will ensure this heart is taken care of properly. For now, though, you must celebrate your victory. I will inform Thrall of your success. Thank you for your aid, adventurer.
He wanted you to pay him in all sweets. If Randy wasn't eating sweets, he was working on electronics. If he wasn't working on electronics, he was looking for a way to smoke some crack. That's just some backdrop of who Randy was. But Stacy was his cellmate. And he never even really talked to Randy. I asked Randy, let me just sell me, man. He's not so. You know what I mean? He's like, I don't know, man. He maybe said 5 words to me, in the years we've been in the cell together. So I'm like, all right. Then we've got a dude in our pod named Dog, Barbie Dog. And anybody that's been in Greensville that was there between 2005, 2014 era, y'all know who Barbie Dog is. Y'all know who Dog is. He looks like a shorter version of Debo. You know what I mean? He's like just muscle-bound black dude. He's just muscles on top of muscles on top of muscles with a bald head. And he was an ex-booty man. Now you're probably thinking, how can you be an ex-booty man? The fuck is an ex-booty man? Dog was one of those dudes that locked up since the 80s and the 90s. And people called him Dog, but they called him Barbie Dog. I worked maintenance with Dog. We were doing pretty well. We got along good. I had heard stories about him. And I asked him one day, I said, why they call you Barbie Dog? He said, you might not like what I got to say, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I said, all right. He said, back in the day, I'd give me a little white boy, and that'd be my Barbie Dog. He said, I treat them like Barbie dolls. I rub their heads and everything. He said, I take that ass from them.
Charcoal mellowed drop by drop for a smooth finish, which isn't the easy way, but it is Jack's way.
I'm looking at him like, what the fuck is wrong with this dude, man? He tripping. He was like, I'm just telling you, if you was soft back then, he was like, it ain't even matter if you was soft. He was like, if I wanted that ass, I would take it. He was like, that was many years ago. He was like, now, I don't really do that so much, man. He's like, I might make parole one day, so I have to slow down. He's like, plus you got all these punks running around here, so you ain't really got to take no ass no more, man. He's like, but yeah, they used to call me Barbie Dog. He's like, but now they just call me Dog. Hey, whatever, man. So we get this new guard on, right? All this ties together. We get this new guard on, her name's Sharon. And Sharon is from the same county as
Look, besides the grunts outside, my brothers and I fought at the Battle of Haijal. Any who seek to steal from the bank must face us first.
She knows who he is. She goes in the office. She pulls up his paperwork. She goes into the pod and she posts it. Like they have this bulletin board where they put up, newsletters, new rules in the prison, maybe the chow hall menu, whatever for the week. And they post it. Well, in the middle of the night when nobody's looking, she goes out there. This is an officer now. And she takes this dude's arrest report, his charges, his court case, clippings, all the stuff she copy and pasted and put on paperwork. She puts it on the bulletin board. So I wake up in the morning for chow and I go out myself. Everybody's at the bulletin board looking at it like, what the fuck? This dude's fancy.
You haven't lived until you look down on the world from the back of a
He's
wind
not aware
rider.
of what's going on. So I walk up, I make my way through the crowd, I'm standing there looking at the paperwork, looking at all this. We come to find out that not only did Stacy murder an infant, a child that was like less than a year old, he was also a sexual predator. In the paperwork, it stated that originally they couldn't figure out why the baby had died. They thought it was kind of like SIDS, where baby passes away in its sleep. But then upon further investigation and on the autopsy, they found, and look, if you're squeamish, you don't like to hear bad things, this is the point where you turn the video off. Let me give you a second. Alright, so upon the autopsy of the baby, and them doing everything to figure out why this little baby died, they found semen, male sperm, in his baby's throat. This guy Stacy was alone with his baby and commenced to having sex with this little tiny baby with its mouth. Collapsed its airway, baby choked to death, couldn't breathe, and died. It's a no-brainer. Y'all know where this is about to go. You got men in there that love their kids, man, miss their kids, hate, sex offenders and predators like that as it is. And now this guy's paperwork has just now been blasted for everybody to see by Officer Sharon. He comes in that evening, and there is just a gang of dudes standing there waiting. You know what I mean? Everybody's trying not to look like they're going to do anything. And the other guards on this shit, like I said, they were hood. They kept the hood. They knew what was going to happen to them. They wanted it to happen to them. They weren't going to call no codes. They turned the cheek the other way, weren't paying attention. You get what you get. You deserve every bit of it. So when he comes in the pod, I'm thinking right then and there that you're going to start stabbing this dude. They're going to chop him down. They're going to butcher him right there in the pod in front of everybody. Not what happens. Dog walks up in front of everybody. Dog was respected. You know what I mean? Dog's he's an OG. He's a lifer. He's been down a long ass time. Dude's respected, y'all. Not to mention he had that one hitter quitter, that pie out, break your whole goddamn jaw. And he was about that knife play. And he fuck you if that's what he felt like doing. So a lot of dudes, when you got somebody in that position that steps up, they're gonna fall back. You know what I mean? About that life. But like I've said, everybody's a killer, everybody's a gangster until a real killer or a real gangster shows up. Dog steps in front of everybody. It's like, nah, y'all ain't gonna do shit to that man. Leave the man the fuck alone, man. He's locked up, just like the rest of y'all. He paid for his crimes, just like the rest of y'all. So we're like, the fuck, man? This dude's defending this dude. He's like, I'll take care of it. So he goes to the booth and tells them, I want y'all to move Stacy to my cell, move my cellie up there with Randy Chappelle. Put Stacy in my cell. So right then and there, we know this ain't that he's gonna protect him thing, man. This is bad for this dude. He's about to get everything that he deserves. This dude Stacy goes to the booth and tells him, hey look, I fear for my life. I want to go to the hole, and they have this little metal slot that they can fold up inside the booth, or they can let it down to talk to you. They close the slot in his face and tell him get out of here. Tell him go ahead and move your stuff. So they end up moving Dog's cellmate upstairs into this dude's cell and moving Stacy downstairs into Dog's cell. It isn't long, man. It's, I would say, dude hadn't unfinished packing yet. It was maybe 30, 45 minutes. And at the time, you still smoke in Virginia. They hadn't, taken smoking out of prison yet. And we all hear this dude screaming. When I mean screaming, he's screaming at the top of his lungs, bloody murder. It sounds like what you expect to hear if somebody, is having their hand cut off or something. It's just this blood gurgling scream from the cell. Just the first real noise I heard come out of this man's mouth. Cop, please, at the booth, trying to get him down there, put him, in the hole, take him somewhere else where he'd be safe. He's been exposed, and all these years, he's been safe and flying under the radar. And you have this little child that's dead in this coffin, buried and gone because of this human piece of shit. So we all get curious on what's going on. Look at the lady in the booth, she knows something like that, but they're not going to do anything. You got to remember that these are mothers. They may be guards, but they're mothers, they're fathers, and sometimes, justice is not served just because you get sent to prison. Sometimes justice is served once you get to prison. The charges are found out, and the right person gets their hands on. So everybody's trying to look in the cell, see what's going on, but don't want to draw too much attention to the fact that, what's taking place in the cell. So I give it a little bit, and I walk over, like I said, me and Dog were cool. Work together, work out with Dog, who was on it, and I walk into the cell, I pull out, knock on my yo, he's like, what's up, bro? I said, it's Jay. He's like, what's up, Jay? So I look in the cell, and he's got this man hog tied, laying on the floor, on his belly, with his pants pulled down. Pulled down around his ankles, and his ankles are up tied to his hands. And he's sitting there beside him, and his boxers. There's got shit on him, he's got blood on him. Right in front of his boxers, you can see shit and blood. This dude's got blood and shit sprayed all over his ass, it's all over the floor. The dog is sitting there smoking a cigarette, right beside him, squatting down, looking at him, and This dude's hog-tied laying on his belly. Cigarette draws from it, puts it out in the middle of his back. Reaches up on the counter, grabs his cigarettes, lights another one, just sits there squat looking at it. Teddy punch in the back of his head, slam his face into the floor a couple more times. There's already smudge marks of blood on the side of the wall, blood on the counter, blood on the side of the toilet, and this dude is just laying there. Dogs are hog-tied, busted his cheeks wide open, and is putting cigarettes out on him. We think this is going to end soon. I mean, as soon as this dude gets up, he's going to tell people what's going on, blah, 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 and that's going to be the end of it. I walk off. It wasn't even something I wanted to see. I thought I was going to had this dude all beat up, or maybe a stab him or something. I didn't expect to see another man all time laying on the ground that had just, been ran up in my dog. They lock us down, and about the night we hear it. You hear this dude screaming, yelling, screaming, yelling. You hear a dog over there beating on him. You hear a dog over there fucking him. It's just grunting, and every now and then you just hear him punching. Punching his body, back in his head, his face. So the next day rolls around, the dog comes out like nothing happened. He done told this dude, you gonna stay in this motherfucking cell, and you better not come up out of here. If you tell people I'll get you touched, I'll get your motherfucking ass killed. I swear to God, you will die and come up out the cell. Stacy didn't go to work at the warehouse. Stacy puts in a slip saying he no longer wants his job. This takes place for months. When I mean months, better part of a month and a half. Every day, dog comes in the cell, and dog just rapes this man. Beats the shit out of him, hog ties him, does whatever he wants to this man. And I'm not gonna say, I'm not so cool with the booty band part of it, because I don't get down like that. But I'm not gonna say that I felt any remorse for him. Nothing that was done to him was enough, considering what he had done to this baby. So we fast forward a month and a half, and word's done got outside of what's going on. And somehow or another, everything that's going on has done made its way up the chain. Somebody more important has found out about it. The PREA people found out about it. Somebody's told this is the Prison Rape Elimination Act for y'all that don't know. That's what PREA is. They come in, they get Stacy out the cell, dog's on the yard working out. They go out there, they lock dog up. The dog's done told this man, he's let him know, if you tell on me, if anything happens, if they lock me up, you a dead man. Once you hit any compound, the paintbrush already out. I take it out there because the next man probably just gonna cut you from the head off and you're dead. So we rather deal with this than deal with that. You know what I mean? You can beat my bitch and you can be dead. Somebody else has done sent off some, a kite somewhere to the PREA people telling them, administration hire them, what's going on. So like I said, they come in, they get Stacy out the cell immediately. They start investigating, they lock dog up. It's maybe 2 weeks later, dog comes back in the car. He's got his bags, he's back from the hole. Dude Stacy wouldn't tell him. I guess he tortured him so bad and scared him so much that Stacy just stayed quiet. Even though they knew 100% what had been taking place, Stacy wouldn't say anything out of fear for his life. We fast forward, I think, it was maybe 3 or 4 days later, and they lock us all down. The whole penitentiary. 3,000 guys, they come in and lock us down. They said they're going to isolate an incident and the whole that's under investigation. And the people from the outside, state police and whatnot, have to come investigate because there's been a death. Stacy hung himself from the fire sprinkler in his cell, in the hole, in 10 building. And that was the end of Stacy. I never really fucked with dog anymore after that. I just found out, it wasn't long before the stuff started with Stacy that, dog used to be a real man before, so I already started falling back from dog. Dog's still locked up today. Stacy's in the ground where he belongs. Now, what I'm trying to get out of this, like I said, I always try to give y'all something good from the bad. We don't always feel justice this served. You might have a family get killed, the guy might get 5, 6 years, the guy's got to work. Sometimes justice is served when you don't know about it, and it's served in a much worse way than what you could ever a situation, think bad of it, and not know what's really going on. Stacy got what he deserves. Stacy deserves to be dead. That booty bandit shit turns my stomach. There's nothing nice about it. You're a sick motherfucker if you do something like that. In Stacy's case, justice was finally served. I hope that baby.
What if Trafalgar Law was evil? Because that was the original plan. I mean, I say plan. In reality, everything was pretty vague. The stories of all of the supernovas were originally painted with a distinct Gaussian blur applied, but Law was one of the very few characters who had a sense of clarity. Trafalgar Law was introduced as an undeniably sinister, scheming figure, always smiling at you as if he was mentally picturing the events that would inevitably lead to your death. Law was presented as something of a puppet master, which shouldn't be surprising given his affiliation to Doflamingo. But early Law's character traits included a distinct pleasure in sowing chaos and watching others fight, such as when he was enjoying the conflict between Mad Monk Rouge and Massacre Soldier Killer. That fight was then broken up by Drake, to which Law said, "Too bad, things were just getting good." Drake, how many people have you killed? Which isn't exactly the dialogue of your typical protagonist. And I honestly can't picture post-time skip Law saying those words. With a Jolly Roger directly referencing Doflamingo, and introduced as the quote, surgeon of death, it was a natural conclusion to assume that Law may not be the goodest of boys. And there's actually evidence that Eiichiro Oda may have intended for Law to be an antagonist all the way up to the Punk Hazard arc. In this sketch, Sanji is being a rather clever cook, catching on to Law's true motives, to which Law replies, "You're sharp, aren't you?" with a very classic antagonistic smirk. And as we know, Law's character took a sharp protagonistic turn. As story chef, Eiichiro Oda served us a Law soup complete with morals, heroics, a tragic yet spicy mentor, and the most important ingredient was not something Oda added, but not something he took away. When Law became a solid protagonist, he pretty much just stopped smiling. And I guess that makes sense because he's not an arrogant agent of chaos anymore. He's taking things very seriously, and serious people do not smile. And the really fun thing is that to justify this, Oda had to more or less create a good version of Doflamingo to serve as Law's mentor instead. Because that Doflamingo, he's a bit of a bad dude. So instead, Law was taught by his brother, Joe Flamingo. He's the good one. Later, of course, renamed Rocinante. But I can't help but wonder what may have been if we'd kept to the original plan. And to make this happen is actually a shockingly simple process. We just need to remove one ingredient from Oda's story soup, and that would be Rocinante. If we take him out of the picture, then Law is left with no one but Doflamingo as a mentor, and Rocinante's worst fears will be brought to life. You can't turn into a monster like my brother. Get away from here, Law. But with no Rocinante, there will be no Law getaway. So how do things play out? Well, Law already has one of the more tragic backstories in the series, intentionally poisoned by his kingdom and the world government and ruthlessly exterminated, surviving only by shielding himself within the corpses of his former kingdom dwellers. It really is a solid supervillain backstory. And this experience eventually led Law to join the Don Quixote Pirates. And his reason for joining was, and I quote, "I just came to join the family so I could kill everyone and everything." And Doflamingo immediately saw potential there. Because of course he did. He is also a raving, murdering lunatic. But also because Doflamingo was described by Rocinante as born with an innately evil nature that knows no bounds. So child Law and adult Doflamingo actually complement each other quite well here. This is now the mentor that Law has. And so he will never be taught the true value of life and never have anyone who truly cares for him, save for maybe Baby 5 and Buffalo. And so things play out quite similarly. Law will still eat the Opi Opi no Mi because it was Doflamingo who found the fruit, not Rocinante. His family will acquire it either directly themselves or through Virgo amongst the Marines on Minion Island. However it happens doesn't matter because it will be given to Law as part of the Eternal Youth plan. And just on this, Doflamingo made his plan pretty clear to Rocinante in their final conversation. Well, if he's already eaten the Opi Opi no Mi, I'll need to raise him so that he knows to die for my sake. And that's exactly what he'll try to do. Law will probably have quite a few years up his sleeves for Doflamingo to groom this belief. However, the problem is that this is incompatible with Law's goal, which, as I will remind you, is killing everyone and everything. In fact, thinking about it, granting Doflamingo's eternal life is, dare I say, counterproductive to killing. So Law will eventually either have to confront Doflamingo or escape from the crew. And something I suppose we should note about this timeline is that Law will never meet the Heart Pirates, because he found them as a child after escaping Minion Island. But now Law has remained a Don Quixote pirate well into his teenage years. However, he can still form a crew. It's very plausible that Law could recruit his childhood friends Baby 5 and Buffalo, mostly because Baby 5 will do quite literally anything you ask, so long as you make it clear that you need her. And Buffalo is easily bribed with assorted treats like ice cream, but also because the three of them did have a connection. Baby 5 and Buffalo were both legitimately worried about Law. And funnily enough, in the canon timeline, Law and Baby 5 did go on to become allies because she's now part of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. So Baby 5's betrayal of Doflamingo at any point is very plausible because it did actually happen. So the Heart Pirates form, except you know what? They're not the Heart Pirates because that was a reference to Rocinante. And if anything, Law right now is the opposite of Rocinante's ideals here. So what is the opposite of Heart? If it were a suit of cards, I'd say maybe Spade, but we've already got the Spade Pirates. So instead, I think we'll go with the Kill Murder Pirate Squad starring Trafalgar Law. Law shall retain his brutal goal of killing everyone and everything, and of course still earn his terrifying epithet as the Surgeon of Death. But his main milestone goal is to kill Doflamingo, which eventually brings us to Sabadi, which goes down exactly as it does in the series. Because even in the canon events, Law is portrayed as evil, except instead of a bear and a penguin, Law will have a buffalo and a baby in his crew. But legitimately, nothing else needs to change about Sabadi. However, when it comes to Marineford, that is where we see a major global shift. Law watches from afar with the rest of the supernova, very in character, probably relishing in the bloodshed, like a voyeur in the corner of some sort of fictional pirate orgy. One Piece is real, etc. However, in this timeline, Law will never join the fight, aka he will not go out of his way to save Luffy. The reason is because it was Rocinante who taught Law the true value of the D, and without Rocinante, it's just another initial. Law doesn't recognize it as anything particularly special or fatesome, so he's not going to go out of his way to save Luffy. And this means that Luffy will almost certainly die. There is an argument to be made that Shanks would have stopped Luffy being killed on the battlefield by, say, Kizaru, but the bigger problem is Luffy's existing injuries. It took a doctor of both Law's skill and Law's specific magical fruit powers to ensure that Luffy would survive. And even then, Law himself said there was no guarantee that Luffy would ever recover. So I do think that without Law's intervention, our our future pirate king becomes our current pirate corpse. Also, because I don't think I'll ever have a chance to talk about this in another video, I just want to linger on this panel of Law meeting Ivankov, because I always misread Ivankov's dialogue as, "By the way, who are you? Straw Hat's boyfriend?" And honestly, I don't think that would be out of character for Ivankov. But instead of saving Luffy, we are going to plow on with Law's plan, which he sums up as, "Now just shut your mouths and follow me. I'll take my rightful place when the time comes." He was so much more villainous than I think most of us remember. So much so that even in this hypothetical evil Law scenario, all I need to do to make him evil is cut and paste his existing dialogue. But by this time, the Kill Murder Pirate Squad will have recruited many new members, all equally as invested in doing exactly what it says on the box, and this will culminate in the Rocky Port incident, said to be masterminded by our very own Surgeon of Death. Law obtains 100 hearts from 100 non-consenting pirates. He then offers those to the world government and becomes a warlord of the sea. And this is where we encounter a very interesting twist. From here, Law will still go to Punk Hazard with the intention of being a general prick. However, we run into a newly created and very Monet-shaped problem. So Punk Hazard is always a bit confusing in the series because the timelines of when things and what things happen can be tricky to put together. But Monet is a member of the Don Quixote family. However, in the series, Law didn't know this because she joined shortly after Law left. However, in this timeline, Law didn't leave, and so he is aware of Monet's affiliation, which means he knows he cannot trust her or stay on Punk Hazard, because his position will be immediately reported to Doflamingo, and then general bad things will occur. So to realize his plan, Law is going to need some more head-on firepower. And given that he was already thinking of making an alliance in the actual series, that probably means that he's going to seek out an alliance. The natural go-to at the time would be Eustace Kid. He is, of course, the most notorious member of the worst generation still alive. However, he's already planning an alliance of his own to take down Shanks, having invited Basil Hawkins and Scratchman Pooh. And that's not ideal, because what Law needs is for this alliance to focus on Kaido. If they target Shanks, Doflamingo, meaningless, he won't be touched. However, I can't say that his other options are great. At this point, Diaz Drake has already aligned himself with Kaido, and Capone Gang Beige has pledged his services to Big Mom, so they're both out. Luffy's dead, so he's out. Zoro's irrelevant, probably doing something somewhere, doesn't matter, he's out. Jewelry Bonnie gives absolutely zero craps about Law's Flamingo cause, and that really does leave us with just Mad Monk Rouge, who Law probably won't be able to find because he's spending his time hiding out in the sky. So Law really doesn't have many great options here. He can either try to take Punk Hazard and as a result the Don Quixote pirates down on his own, which will end badly, or he can try to weasel his way into the Kid Alliance and hope for the best. But look, I'm gonna be blunt here. Either way, it has the same outcome. Let's say he joins the Kid Alliance. Great. That alliance is abruptly broken by the arrival of Kaido from the sky, who I prefer to call Skydo. But Skydo will land on the ground and become Kaido once more, and then even with Law to help defend, this alliance is being easily defeated again. And because Kaido is an ally of Doflamingo, inevitably Law will find himself captured and taken to Dressrosa. For a very dark take on the Dressrosa rock, because from here one of two things can happen. Either Law acquiesces and performs the surgery on Doflamingo, thus killing Law, or Doflamingo can choose to recover the Opi Opi no Mi and thus also killing Law. Either way, Law dies, but his legacy will live on in the form of some very unfortunate consequences. In the most immediate outcome, all of the toys on Dressrosa will probably remain slaves, Sabo won't win the Mera Mera no Mi in the Corridor Coliseum, and Doflamingo and Caesar are never stopped. They continue making weapons for Kaido until he's ready to launch his global campaign. On Wano, the new Onigashima project will be completed, resulting in the murder or enslavement of all remaining citizens on Wano. I want to say that Kaido will eventually realize that he has Pluton, but he hasn't found it in 20 years, so I have no reason to suspect that he ever will. But once ready, Kaido will unleash the biggest war this world has ever seen, immediately forcing the other three emperors into conflict. Some like Blackbeard out of opportunity to capitalize on chaos, or some like Shanks out of his long-standing obligation to stop wars. And of course, some like Big Mom, who shares Kaido's goals of finding the One Piece and becoming the Pirate King. And eventually, the two of them will likely form an alliance just as they did in the series. And in the face of that, Shanks alone will not be enough to stop them. He would either need to form an alliance with the Marines, or a most unlikely alliance with Blackbeard to bring the power dynamic back to parity. Should neither of those things happen, I think that Kaido and Big Mom succeed. The race for Pirate King is essentially narrowed down to the two of them, and the world would be plunged into an even darker era than it currently exists in. And all of this will be thanks to the selfish desires of one very evil Trafalgar Law, who does actually kind of achieve his dream beyond the grave, by the way, because a lot of the individual components that make up the concepts of, quote, everyone and everything will indeed die.